Hello, welcome back to the chapter analysis of Moodon Act 1. I know it's been a while since I've done one of these recordings, but school and life can just really take up so much time to where you don't feel like you can really sit down and give the full analysis and in-depth reading that I want to give. But right now we're on the holiday break, the first holiday break for school, and I thought this would be a great time to at least get one chapter in. One of my favorite chapters that really inspired me and helped me write A Brother's Betrayal. If you haven't read A Brother's Betrayal, go ahead and check it out. It's on it's on the Lulu bookstore. It's on the website as well, Amazon too, and the um, the perspective of A Brother's Betrayal is through a young teenage girl. And without me writing chapter three, it would have been very difficult for me to write that. And you'll see why chapter three really helps that. But you probably know, if you've already read the book, you've already know chapter three is Nama's chapter. So let's get into it. It's been a long time and let's not waste any more of it. Chapter three. The morning sunlight shines into the window of a large room, decorated in green drapes with yellow stripes, representing the colors of Dove. A young woman, dark-skinned with nails to match her room, Nema Tandreek, arises from the bed. The Tandreek family ruled over the Phylician desert city of Drios. With Drios' population growing, their resources depleted. The deserted plains did not help the growth of crops. This led to the people turning to other ways of making ends meet: piracy, prostitution, and the slave trade. This way of life had been going on in Phylicia for hundreds of years, kings of the past turning a blind eye and even partaking. When Nama's father conquered the other cities of Phylicia, he believed a relationship with the richest nation in the Isles, Dav, would help fluctuate more natural resources to Phylicia. Dav made most of its money from the resources that come from the rivers and caves. Its most precious resources are gold and emerald. The bright green of an emerald piece in the gold gave the flag its color. The Emergals, the first miners to find the emerald piece, named it and turned it into a valuable form of currency. Within generations, the Emergals were able to buy themselves into power, now ruling over the nation for the last few thousand years. Dav, in most of the kingdoms on the Isle, looked down on its people making money from looting honorable merchants, one could say, not merchants are, and selling babies before even tasting their mother's own milk. The relationship between Drios and Dav would only grow if Phylicia were to put away with their traditions. King Tandreek did so, along with giving his daughter to marry Dav's prince to seal the relationship. Nema stretches and takes a sip of water. She sits at the edge of her bed, and she usually does every morning. She hears a knock on the door. 3 straight times the door is knocked, but not in the tone her entire life had always awoken her. Just 3 offbeat knocks followed by her name. "Princess Nema, are you awake?" says the voice. 2 more knocks. Nema begins to think about the knocks she grew up hearing. It would always be her twin brother David. His comical behavior always put a smile on Nama's face, something she hadn't done since she was back in Drios. Their parents, King Tandreek and Queen Anifa, sent her to Dav to marry Prince Cedrin Emergal, heir to the kingdom of his father, King Laxer Emergal. Their wedding would be more of a financial arrangement than of love. The knocks continue. Nama stares at the ground, thinking of her family members. "Come in," she says after a deep breath. The door opens, and 2 young maidens enter, one carrying a plate of bread and fruit, and the other holding a wet blanket and mouthbrush. The maidens smile, showing how blessed they are to serve in the castle. The Queen of Dav picks her maidens from the slums of the city at random, unlike her predecessors who rely on the maidens to give birth to a girl to raise and take her place. The maidens begin to wipe Nama's crusty face and ask her, "Are you ready for the feast this week?" "I don't know. Should I? It's just dinner," says Nama. "But the feast will be in the Hall of Wonder," says the other maiden. "And?" says Naima as she picks up 2 grapes from the plate, ignoring the dusty flour bread. When there's a feast in the hall, usually that means the door suddenly opens, wildly in the most non-subtle way. Grabbing the 3 ladies' attention, a young man enters. A white blouse covers his light brown skin. My prince, good morning, says the maiden as she stops, picking through Naima's hair. The maiden's attention was pulled to the prince so quickly that her pull on Naima's hair gave the princess a slight feeling of pain. Naima's face squinches, and she ducks her head down. She taps her scalp, hoping the pick didn't cause a bleed. Good morning, ladies, says the prince. The sun glowed on his skin, as did his golden necklace, surrounded by small emerald pieces mined from the caves in the countryside. Ah, my future bride-to-be. How did you sleep? I slept okay, Naima replied. The day we wed. Did you dream of it? He asks as he moves in closer to create a more intimate moment. The moment couldn't be more public. The 2 maidens stared at Naima as if they would do anything to be asked those questions from a prince as charismatic and attractive as Cedrin. Says Naima. She could feel the pressure from the maidens as they eagerly wait for her to say yes. Making your king happy was how her mother taught her if she wanted to have a good life. Naima pondered that advice as she finished her sentence. I did. The wedding was beautiful. I wore this dress, and it was made out of... Okay, that's enough. Cedrin places his 2 fingers over her lips. As long as you dreamt of me is all that matters. Now I have great news for us. What is it? She asks. A knife, she says under her breath. Is it that you have a knife to slit my wrist with? Another day here would do me worse. I've only been here for weeks, but each day feels like another 2 years. I want to go home, and I miss the warm weather and the sounds of the city I could hear from my window. Here it's cold, and the castle is so far up the mountain I could barely see the city. I haven't seen any common folk since I arrived. All I see every day is maidens, guards, and rich noblemen kissing the ass of the king, trying to offer their daughters and sons hands in marriage. I can remember the looks given to me the day of my arrival. They looked at me like all the hard work they tried to get their children married into royalty was taken by the dark girl who came off the boat with barely any clothes covering her skin. Say again, says Cedrin as Naima questions whether or not she spoke her true thoughts out loud. I'm sorry, what did I say? You said a knife. Why would you need a knife? Naima's mind goes blank, still recovering from the slight embarrassment. The maidens look at her with worry, hoping her statements won't turn the prince away from her. For protection at night, you know? I keep one under my pillow, which helps me sleep better. That's why we have guards. You don't need a knife. Women don't carry knives. Definitely not a queen. Guards. I wish you were joking. In my short time, I've noticed the guards. They carry the shiniest swords and the most excellent armor I've seen before. Too lovely, to be exact. These men here look like they never cut another man's flesh, and I haven't noticed a single scar on any of them. They walk like their only reason here is to wear the shiny armor and to grab the attention of any woman in the room. You're right. I don't need one, says Naima nervously. After a short chuckle, Prince Cedrin says, the Philicians are violent, I've heard. It's also true that what they have in a fight, they lack in wisdom. And money as well. I mean, that's why you're here, because your father's broke, isn't it? So what's the news? Asked Naima, ignoring Cedrin's prejudiced remarks. There's a feast soon. I'm sure the maidens have gossiped about it by now. When we arrive at the Hall of Wonders, I want you to be ready for my proposal. You know what to say, right? I say yes. You don't just say yes. This isn't Drios. This isn't Drios. I don't know what you people do, if you even exchange words or just fuck all day. You have to make a speech of acceptance. A speech? Yes. Where you thank my father for allowing you to marry me and explain how grateful you are to marry the heir to the throne and how you will be a great queen. See, my father is getting old and his wife will give birth soon. Twins they expect. Once he passes, she'll be relieved of her duties. But don't make it too much about you. Don't forget to say how much you admire me. And I think I get the idea, says Naima. Excuse me, but I wasn't done. Well, you were interrupting me earlier, so... Well, you don't speak to your king this way, Cedrin yells as his face crunches and the tension rises throughout the room. King? Naima laughed slightly. A boost of confidence filled her as she finally spoke her mind, something she had yet to do in Dav. I may not be king yet, but I have the power to tell my men to put you in the cells and only bring you up to show your face and breast in my bed. He wasn't wrong. Grandma reminded me of how her father kept her mother in the cells for a year after losing a child at birth. I've heard countless stories of kings imprisoning, if not killing their wives, only to sleep with their mistresses and treat them better. But never treat their bastards the same. It's odd how the men think. You treat your heirs the best, but not their mothers. You treat their mistresses better, but disown the bastard. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have interrupted. Now, your behavior makes me regret giving you this gift, but my father insists you wear it. Wear what? Cedrin snaps his fingers in the air. The door suddenly opens as two men carrying a chest enter. The men are skinny servants and look underfed, and the scared look in their eyes shows the fear they have for the prince. They set the chest down in front of the bed and stand up, their fear causing them not to make eye contact with Naima, but instead stare at the ground. Open the box or leave the room. I don't need you here standing. Wasting the good air here, says Cedrin as he loses more patience. The servants quickly open the chest and the maidens read the prince's command and grab the dress from them. Fearful that their rough, dirty hands would spoil the dress was green with a gold lining. Ladies, grab that dress. Naima, this dress was my mother's before she passed. It would have been for my sister Fafney, but she's still too young to wed. She would have wanted my first wife to wear it. Thank you so much, says Naima, shocked by the grand gesture Cedrin had given to her. She senses the potential of a different side of him. This side of Cedrin seemed like it would quickly fade away after hearing what Naima had to say next. I had brought my grandmother's dress with me. She told me that since she may not be here for the wedding, I promised her I would at least wear it so she could be here somehow. The servants and the maidens grew speechless, waiting for the prince to respond, hoping Naima's innocent request would not set off his temper. The silence continued. The hawk's flapping wings could be heard outside, and the guard steps in the hallway could be counted. Prince Cedrin inhales deeply and says, Okay, I'm willing to compromise. Let me see the dress. Naima stands from the bed and begins to walk over to her closet. She grabs the dress and walks over to the corner. The moment couldn't move any slower as she tried to put on the dress as quickly as possible, praying that Cedrin wouldn't grow impatient and change his mind. When she steps from behind the divider, the servants finally look, their eyes filled with amazement and the maidens with a small amount of envy. The prince's eyes were the opposite. Disapproval and dislike filled his. You look like a whore, if I must be honest. A queen shouldn't show so much skin. Maybe a whore of a queen from Phylecia. But here's a queen, don't show your breasts and thighs here in the aisles. I wonder if the maidens would scream if I grabbed the knife and gave him a good slice. Would the servants try to restrain me? Or would they stand by and watch? I think the prince is trying to say that it'll be cold and your dress may not complement the harsh winds of the night. No, I said what I said. The dress makes her look like a whore. I was just trying to say, Prince Cedrin swings his arm in the air, giving the young maiden a swift strike to her face before she can finish her sentence. Silence! The room goes quiet once again, and the tears from her face start to fall, followed by quick, heavy breaths. You, he says, pointing to the other maiden. Tell her she looks like a whore. Huh? Says the other maiden as she comforts the one suffering from the abuse of the prince. I said, tell her she looks like a whore in that dress. Must I repeat myself? Struggling to get the words out, she faces Naima, ashamed to say, I think your dress makes you look like a whore. Good, says Cedrin. Now that it's settled, I have other matters to attend to until my feast. My father has an important guest from Zoomania attending. Prince Cedrin gives Naima a little kiss on the forehead before turning away towards the doors. You too, the chest. We don't want anything to happen to the dress between now and tomorrow, he says. The servants will be back before the feast to check on you. Check on me? Says Naima. Yes, I think You should stay here until the feast. The prince begins to walk out of the room, followed by the servants. And what if I'm not here? He stops in the doorway and says, Be lucky I'm letting you stay in your chambers. The door shuts, quiet is the room, and the faint tears and sniffles from the maiden begin to cease. Naima rushes over to the girl with a cloth to wipe her face. I'm sorry he did that to you, she says. It's okay. The prince often does it with other maidens, but this was my first time. I don't think he even know my name. Naima stood there embarrassed. There had been so many other maidens each day that she couldn't remember either of their names. Here, have my dress. I won't be allowed to wear it anytime soon. No, I can't. If they catch me wearing this, I'll be thrown down the mountain. This seems a little harsh to be wearing a dress. You don't know the royal family well enough. Where do you think Prince Cedric gets it from? King Laxer threw his second wife, Queen Ciri, down the mountain after learning she had an affair with her guard. She only did so after finding out the king had a bastard born that week. The maidens noticed that the boy had the same birthmark as the guard. I don't want to meet Ciri's fate. King Laxer is rumored to have many bastards around. His first wife, Queen Bernice, and mother to Cedrin, ignored the king's infidelity to her grave after dying from giving birth to the king's second daughter, Agiola. A few of the king's bastards still walk the city. Some say Bernice was good enough to convince Laxer to let the bastards live that they promised to never attempt to use their birthright to make any claims to the crown. The king's third wife, Queen Melis, was not merciful. When the castle found a maiden was holding the king's baby that would be born around the same as hers, to keep that attention around her, she had the mother and her unborn child thrown down the mountain to roll into the streets of the city. Well, I better go walk around. The castle is so big and I'm still learning my way around, says Naima as the maidens smile and grab their things before heading out of the room. Naima then thinks to herself, if I were to escape one day, I'd have to know the castle well enough to plan a route. That means knowing where all the royal family members were. I hadn't met the rest of the family yet. I saw the king and the queen his first day. As I kept walking through each dim hallway, I saw two kids chasing each other. I could hear their names called by a maiden who seems to have lost sight of them. Prince Omni and Princess Ambry were their names. I remember hearing about those two and constantly running and breaking things. It reminded me of my brother and me. They looked so happy running and playing. To be that age again, that was true happiness. So we're back. That was chapter 3 of Moodon Act 1. And going back, I haven't read my book in so long, with working on A Brother's Betrayal and just school and life. I haven't even really tapped really into my previous writings. I've been working on Act 2 as well and 3. So I haven't really read a lot of Act 1 because I know the whole story in my head. But in terms of the minute details and the dialogue of every chapter was kind of I wouldn't say new to me, but it was refreshing to hear those words. I could see some of the things that, as a writer, I'd be like, oh, I kind of want to change that. Oh, I wish I could change that. But, it's out there and you just got to trust your reader that they'll get what you're trying to say. But as I grow as a writer, that's something I struggle with. I just wanted to be open about that. But, I think that's something that we all struggle with, no matter if you're just a creative. Even musical artists have something that, once it's out, they're like, oh, I should have said this on the beat, or, oh, I should have did this note this way, or, things like that. So, but it's definitely refreshing to go back and listen and hear the story of Naima and some of her original thoughts. And I liked how she has so much pent up into her, but she puts on such a a smile on her face, even though there's moments through the conversation with the prince Cedrin that it breaks and he almost hears her, but he's so full of himself he's not really noticing it. Everybody else in the room can kind of, the maidens and the servants, they're so quiet, they can't say anything about what she's saying. So it's really up to Cedrin to really see if she's really meaning the things when she's just saying, oh, I'm sorry for what I just said, or, oh, things like that. So I really enjoyed writing her character because I wanted to write her in a very, in a way where she wasn't she's keen to a lot of the politics of what goes on. She might not be very well versed in the royal family in Dov, but she's keen to royalty in general. She's not just some girl off the street who's being married to a prince. She's a princess as well, but she's from a place that's a little bit more loose when it comes to their culture and how their things. And that's something that Cedrin tends to even make fun of and like says like, oh, you guys wear so much skin, or, oh, you guys are violent. You're not really, you lack wisdom, you lack money, you lack class. So it's something I really wanted to point out to kind of show the differences of how these people are not a match at all, not even, but it goes from personality to character to just culture and just how they see the world. It's very different. He's a little bit hit. And then the maiden kind of talks about, where does he get it from? He gets it from his father. His father might be an older man, so he might not be as harsh as him maybe, but so far, I'll just say that. But it seems like, oh, okay, he gets it from his father, and this must be what the kings here are, compared to how with her father, she's seen her father as the man who kind of was willing to sacrifice all the harsh things in the culture, which is something that's, as a leader, it's a very hard decision to do, because if your culture is used to piracy and slave trade and prostitution and all these different things, but he's saying, hey, but we're not making money off this. So in order for us to make money, we have to have some diplomacy, and people won't deal with us if we keep acting like this. So her father makes this huge grand gesture of saying, hey, here's the rule. I've conquered all the cities in the desert just so I can have the power to abolish this type of stuff so we can actually make money. So, that she comes from a family that's the men in her life. They're willing to make sacrifices for the people, as to where she's now going to be married to this selfish ego psychopath guy who just can't even let her finish a sentence. Like, he's always cutting her off. Every time she tries to say something or speak her mind, he's just cutting her off and just making prejudiced remarks about her people and things like that. And I really wanted to really hone in on that, because that happened a lot of times in medieval times, and just even in this world that I'm creating, there's so many arranged marriages where the people are not matched at all, to where even the cultures are going to clash. And it's not just I don't find them attractive, or he doesn't find me, or I don't find her attractive. It's not that. It's more because when I introduced Cedrin, he is a very attractive man. The maidens are very he's charismatic. He still has this charisma about him, and he's also attractive. And, but at the end of the day, his soul is very, very ugly. And his attitude and his character is very, very ugly. And Naima sees past that. She's not worried about that. She's cold to him. So that's something I really wanted to get into with this chapter. And that's what I wanted to introduce her character as, because it's a huge catalyst for her actions for the rest of the book. And I don't want to spoil anything that I'm writing currently in Act 2 or 3, or give any foreshadowing, but I'll just say that about how it's going to be this scene. I mean, not this scene, this chapter. See, like I said, I'm in a intro to screenplay and playwriting class, so I'm speaking in scene language and stuff like that. But this chapter is it's going to be a catalyst for the rest of her character arc throughout the rest of the throughout Act 2 and 3. So yeah, that's just something I really wanted to hone in on. There's one more thing I probably would touch on. When Cedrin slaps the girl, that was something. It was a tougher scene, because it was something that, not scene, here I go again. It was a tougher piece within the chapter that I was like, do I really want to keep this? But I was like, I kind of wanted to show how he's talked, but there still is that part of him that's like, okay, now I will take violence. How Naima was speaking on how the guards look like they haven't cut anybody. There's no scars on them. They look soft. I wanted to show how still is a little bit of sense of they'll do something, but it's obviously not to another man, it's to a woman. And I just kind of wanted to show a side of him that's still that can put a stamp on him being a bad guy, because once you start hitting maidens, that's definitely like, you can have this charismatic, egotistical guy that sometimes can kind of change. But usually when you see a guy that's just hitting servants, that's like, oh, this is who he is. So that's something I'll say this right now as a spoiler. Cedrin is not going to be a good guy at all. There's no good guy character arc. If you're hoping for that, I'm a bust your bubble right now. That's not him. But then again, I could be lying. But based off what I've shown you so far, his attitude towards Nema, the way he treats the servants, and the threats that he even makes to Nema about saying, I'll put you in the cells just for your breast. And I forgot the other language I used, but it was basically him saying, I'll only need you to show face and to give birth to my children. Other than that, I'll put you in a cell if you don't act right. So just, I kind of wanted to show that to where it's not like he's this immature, pampered kid that's just like, just wants to be all about me, 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 me. He's also very like, I will threaten you. I will ruin your life if you mess with me. So he's, he has that into him because he also is a little bit older. I don't think I really dive deep into his age, but we'll get there at some point. Yeah, so that's pretty much that. And I wanted to end too with Nema speaking to herself, because that's kind of how she kind of started off. Really, we kind of introduced her when she was like, oh, this knife, when she started talking about the knife, how much she hated being there. And that was something I was really debating if the whole chapter was going to be through her perspective, but I felt like it was good to just kind of dive into just her personal thoughts instead of everything from her perspective, because we'll get there. She'll have her chapters as well where it's all Nema and through her eyes, similar to how we have it with Moodon, and maybe other characters as well. As I'm working on Act 2 and 3, we'll see other characters' full perspective. It's a very interesting chapter. I really enjoyed writing it, and I did like how Nema was trying to comfort the girl by saying, oh, here's my dress, thinking that'll fix it. But then once they tell her about what goes on here to the women, she's just kind of like, seems like there's nothing I can do. So she's like, I'm just going to get out of here. That's one thing I did want to write about Nema. Is she tried to help the girl, but it's like, okay, she doesn't want the dress. There's nothing much I can really do. So at this point, I'm going to get out of here. A lot of times you have characters that kind of want to be a revolutionary for the rest of the other characters that are like them within the story. And that's not what I wanted to write Nema. Nema has a little bit of selfishness to her with that. Like, oh, okay. Like she hears the story, but now she's like, okay, I think I'm going to go walk now. Like there's nothing else she can really do for the girl. So she's like, let me go walk around, because now walking around is her way of figuring out, okay, how can I get out of this place? Even though we're on this castle at the top of this mountain, I need to find any source of information I can help to get me out of here. So that's something that, be on the lookout for in terms of her character, that she also is very much about herself too, not to the extent that Cedrin. And I think it's hard to see it, because when you read it, you're not really thinking that I put that there, but because of Cedrin's selfishness. But that's just a nugget that I wanted to throw in there during the chapter analysis. That's why I do these to throw in little nuggets that you might have missed that I wrote. And I intentionally did that. And I was like, in the chapter analysis, I'm going to go in depth about that. And, so yeah, I hope you enjoyed this analysis. I enjoyed it. It's good to be back. I'm working on Act 2 and 3. As I said earlier, I'm in a writing class for screenplay and playwriting, so it's a little bit weird. I think I'll probably be able to really dive back into writing the dialogue once I get out of this class and get out of that what's the word I'm looking for, out of the style. I'll just use style, the style that I'm used to with writing for a screenplay or a movie or a short film. So once I get out of that class and get out of that way of writing, I'll definitely be able to really dive deeper into Act 2 and 3. Because right now I'm just kind of writing how things are going to end. A little bit of dialogue, a little bit of details, but those describing details, it's very different when you're writing the details for a screenplay or a playwright. You're writing very like, this is what it is and that's it. You're not writing in a book way where you're writing all the little details and you're also kind of doing comparisons. It's just a little bit different. So definitely be on the lookout for the end of this the end of Moodon story by 2024, sometime next year. Definitely be on the lookout for it. Other than that, I want to thank you for joining me. Thanks for being back. Thanks for being patient. I know a lot of people have been asking, where's the chapter analysis? Where's the rest of Moodon story? I'm getting there. I'm getting there. Trust me, I just don't want to rush it, you know? So definitely be on the lookout for it. Also, A Brother's Betrayal is out. Again, Amazon, search it. My website, jamelkijana.com. I'll put the link down below. It's also on Lulu Bookstore, I believe. It's also on the ebook on Amazon, I believe. And so, yeah, just be on the lookout for those things as we finish up here. I'm going to sign off, and I can't wait to do another one of these things. I might do another one right now and record it. We'll see. I still have a few more days of this first holiday break of this semester, so let's see where we are. And thank you so much, and keep supporting, keep reading, and have a great rest of your year.